The first recorded attempt at bear domestication dates back to ancient Persia around 500 BCE, where wealthy nobles captured brown bear cubs and raised them within palace grounds. Historical texts describe elaborate training programs, where bears were taught to perform tasks like carrying heavy loads and even participating in royal processions. The Persians believed that if they could harness the bear's raw power, they could create the ultimate working animal, one that could outperform horses in strength while requiring less food relative to their work output. These early experiments lasted for generations, with some families maintaining breeding programs that spanned decades. However, the results were always the same. Adult bears, no matter how carefully raised, retained unpredictable temperaments that made them unsuitable for reliable work. In medieval Russia, a different approach emerged around the 12th century. Russian nobility didn't just want working animals, they wanted symbols of power and prestige. Bears were captured as cubs and raised in monasteries and estates, where they were trained to wrestle, dance, and entertain guests at grand celebrations. Some historical accounts describe bears wearing ornate collars and chains, living in specially constructed quarters within castle grounds. The most ambitious program was established by Ivan the Terrible, who allegedly maintained a collection of over 50 bears at various stages of training. His court naturalists attempted to selectively breed the calmest individuals, hoping to create a docile lineage over multiple generations. They documented behavioral traits, tracked family lines, and even attempted crosses between different bear species. The program continued for nearly 40 years before being abandoned after numerous incidents where supposedly tamed bears attacked handlers without warning. What made bears such attractive candidates for domestication was their remarkable versatility. Unlike dogs, which primarily offered hunting assistance and protection, bears could theoretically fill multiple roles simultaneously. Their omnivorous diet meant they could survive on human food scraps, reducing feeding costs. Their powerful builds suggested they could pull loads heavier than any horse or ox. Their ability to stand upright and manipulate objects with their paws indicated potential for complex task training. In Scandinavia during the Viking Age, there are records of attempts to use bears as siege animals, creatures that could be directed to break down fortifications or intimidate enemies. The Norse sagas mention battle bears trained from cubs, though archaeological evidence suggests these projects never progressed beyond small-scale experiments. The North American frontier brought renewed interest in bear domestication during the 18th and 19th centuries. Pioneers and mountain men frequently encountered orphaned bear cubs and, moved by compassion or curiosity, raised them alongside their families. These arrangements sometimes lasted for years, with individual bears becoming surprisingly integrated into human households. Perhaps the most famous case was that of Benjamin Franklin Grizzly, a bear raised by California gold miners in the 1850s. He lived with the mining camp for 7 years, reportedly helping to guard supplies and even carrying small loads of equipment. Newspapers of the era celebrated him as proof that bears could be domesticated with enough patience and proper training. However, at age 8, Benjamin suddenly attacked his primary caretaker during a routine feeding, causing severe injuries. The incident reignited debates about whether true domestication was even possible. Throughout the early 20th century, circuses and traveling shows maintained numerous bears, creating the most extensive long-term human-bear cohabitation in history. These performing bears were trained to ride bicycles, dance, box, and execute complex routines, suggesting that extensive behavioral modification was possible. Trainers developed sophisticated techniques, working with cubs from birth and using reward-based methods to shape behavior. Some facilities maintained multi-generational breeding programs, carefully selecting the most trainable individuals as parents for the next generation. The famous Hagenbeck family in Germany ran such a program for over 70 years, producing bears that seemed remarkably docile and responsive to commands. Yet even these extensively trained animals required constant vigilance. Specialized facilities and experienced handlers, they never achieved the reliability of truly domesticated animals. The Soviet Union launched the most scientifically rigorous attempt at bear domestication in 1932, paralleling their famous fox domestication experiment. At a remote facility in Siberia, researchers began a controlled breeding program using brown bears, selecting only the calmest and most human-friendly individuals for reproduction. They They hypothesized that the same genetic changes that created domestic dogs from wolves could be replicated with bears through selective breeding. The program continued for nearly 30 years, producing bears that showed reduced fear responses and increased sociability. Some individuals from the 5th and 6th generations displayed notably different behaviors, approaching humans voluntarily and showing less aggression during handling. However, even these selectively bred bears never developed the predictable temperament needed for true domestication, and the program was eventually discontinued due to safety concerns and resource constraints. In modern times, numerous individuals have kept bears as exotic pets, often with tragic results. Timothy Treadwell spent 13 summers living among wild grizzlies in Alaska, developing close relationships with individual bears and documenting their behavior. He believed he had transcended the traditional human-bear boundary, creating genuine friendships with these wild animals. His story ended in 2003, when he and his companion were killed by a bear they had lived near for years. More recently, several high-profile cases have emerged of people raising bears in domestic settings, from the Russian couple who lived with an adopted bear for over 20 years, to the American family whose pet bear appeared in countless social media posts. These modern attempts continue to demonstrate the same fundamental challenge. Bears raised by humans from infancy can seem remarkably tame for years before their wild nature suddenly and dangerously reasserts itself. What all these attempts reveal is something profound about the nature of domestication itself. It's not simply a matter of training or even selective breeding over a few generations. It requires fundamental genetic changes that may only occur under very specific conditions over many centuries. Bears may have missed some crucial evolutionary window, or perhaps their biology simply resists the neurological changes necessary for true domestication. Whatever the reason, the bear remains one of humanity's most ambitious failed domestication projects, a powerful reminder that nature sets limits even human determination cannot overcome.